Today's episode of the Apter Chat is brought to you by Blue Chew. Bill, Blue Chew was all in this past weekend.
They were, and the Blue Chew crew was all over the place. Did you notice the big blue balloons?
I did notice those big
so
blue
it's
balloons.
true. It's damn true that the Blue Chew crew was there too.
Okay, you worked that out.
You like that? Yeah.
So everybody knows that Blue Chew is the way to go. You can increase your performance and get that extra confidence that you need. BlueChew.com, it's blue, like the color blue.
Right.
BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable.
You know, that was also a country music song?
Was it? Blue Chew?
No, Blue.
Blue?
Yeah, but they could have added Chew to it.
BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach.
Doesn't matter where you are. You could be on the subway in New York.
Or you could have been at the All-In After Party sponsored by Blue Chew.
But people will just think that you're chewing gum.
They will.
But
That's
you
it.
spotted someone in the crowd.
Yeah. Now, if you're saying to yourself, how can I get my hands on some Blue Chew? Well, we have some information for you. Apter Chatters, listen up. Go to BlueChew.com and get your first shipment absolutely free.
Wait a minute. No money? Free?
No money. Just $5 shipping. Only $5 shipping.
That's it.
And you can get your first shipment absolutely free. And that's not one chewable. That's not two chewables. That is an entire month full of Blue Chew. Time to get your Blue Chew going. Go to BlueChew.com. Get your first shipment free with promo code BILL. That's right. Promo code BILL. B-I-L-L. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. So you don't have to have your neighbors looking around going, what is that package? Oh, that must be Blue Chew. I wonder what that is. But your neighbors, chances are, they're using Blue Chew too, because they know that Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. So no in-person doctor's visit, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness.
I know one or two pharmacists who have lovely-looking girlfriends.
Well, then why don't you, next time you see those pharmacists, why don't you tell them about BlueChew.com? Tell them to use the promo code BILL and they can get their first shipment free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the Apter Chat.
The Apter Chat is the place to go to hear all the inside scoops about your favorite wrestlers, from your favorite wrestlers, and also from your favorite magazine editor, photographer, major domo, the man whose name became synonymous with wrestling journalism for decades and decades. He's so old when he was in school they didn't have history, ladies and gentlemen. Bill Apter, Wonderful Willie, and the Apter Chat.
Welcome to the Apter Chat. My name is Josh Shernoff, and I am joined by the one, the only, the legendary Bill Apter.
Thank you very much, so says Shernoff. How did you come up, by the way, with that handle, the Twitter handle?
So says Shernoff? Well, it's interesting, and it involves you.
That's why I asked you.
So you already know the answer. You just want me to put you
no,
over
I don't,
to the Apter
I
Chatters?
don't
Okay.
actually.
So, many years ago, when I was starting my wrestling career, I was trying to come up with a catchphrase because this was in the late 90s, and everyone had a catchphrase, and they still should today.
Yes.
So I'm trying to come up with one, and I couldn't come up with one. And you and I, to really date this, you and I were
We weren't dating. Let's go back.
No, we were. I guess, what would you even call it? Instant messaging each other on AOL.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Instant messaging each other on AOL. And I said something, I don't remember what the conversation was. And you wrote back, so says you. And I thought to myself, and I thought, And of course, so says, there's two S's already.
Yeah.
And I went by the name of Superstar Rocky Styles. And so I thought to myself, so says the Superstar. That's kind of cool. And that's how I ended my promos. And so when I was trying to, I had the Twitter handle, I am Josh Harris for a while when I was using, as you guys can, on there, my name's Josh Harris Shernoff. When I was doing some acting and music and stuff, I was going by the name of Josh Harris. what I realized when we were starting this and we were starting to work together was there are a lot of Josh Harrises out there, and there was a lot of confusion in the marketplace, so to speak. But there is only one Josh Shernoff, folks, and I decided to go with Josh Shernoff. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to change my Twitter handle. So I went through, oh my God, I just kept coming up with different ones. And then finally I just said, you know what? So says Shernoff. It plays up to my previous wrestling career, and it works with all this. So that's the long-winded version of the story.
I've got an announcement to make.
Yes.
When we were at All In and StarCast,
yes,
people kept coming over to me, and I go over this over and over again. Mr. Apter, I'm your biggest fan, and thank you, all you fans. But I read your magazines forever. You taught me how to write. You taught me how to take pictures. You practically mentored me. And I'm totally flattered by all of that. And PWI Bill is the best magazine, and that's great, too. And then when I say, do you still buy the magazine? Oh, we still buy your magazine. Well, did you know that it's a bi-monthly now? No, we didn't, Bill. I said, did you know I haven't worked for them for 23 years? Humma, 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 humma. People still think that I work for PWI. I talk to Stu Sachs, the main man there, all the time. We're very dear friends. But people think that, not only that, but they think that I owned the magazines.
Do you know a way you could clear that up for them?
How?
If they were to read your book, Is Wrestling Fixed?
I didn't know it was broken. But yeah, it is in there, Josh. And thank you very much for the plug. And you can get it on Amazon. There's only 8 copies left on Amazon.
You can go to theactorchat.com.
Yeah, but you have to get it soon because somebody sent me a message on Instagram the other day that it says, hurry and order. There's only 8 copies left. So I have to call the publisher. But getting back to my point here is for all you people who think that I owned the magazine or the magazines, I didn't. And I was part of probably 5 or 6 great teams that put out the wrestling magazines, PWI, The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, Sports Review, which had Apartment Wrestling, of course, Ben Strong Wrestling, all these things. I never owned those magazines. I was part of these great crews that put the magazine together, but I was the guy out in the field. I was the guy shooting the pictures.
You were the face of the magazine.
Not the heel. The face, yes. And at times, Stu Sachs, Craig Peters would go on trips with me, etc. But they put me on TV. The promoters like Jim Crockett, Paul Bosch put me on TV, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and all over the place they put me on. And I became Jimmy Olsen, so to say, which gave credibility to these companies because they were... We have a reporter down here from New York. It was very impressive to put me on there. But the thing is that Bill Apter lives in a mansion. He could retire. First of all, I never want to retire. I love what I do. And I love you fans for recognizing me for this. But I just want to set the record straight that Stu Sachs, Peter King, Brandy Minkiewicz, Ken Morgan, Joe Bua, and so many other great people who put those magazines together, Gary Morgenstein, Morgie, and Steve Farhood, who's, a Showbox commentator from Showtime Boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never owned it. And I didn't mind being one of the people on the team.
So how did you get your mansion then?
I had a great deal. I had a credit card. I don't want to discuss. Well, I have no mansion. I live in a nice house.
You live in a very nice house.
In the suburbs of Pennsylvania.
I'm quite, having grown up in the neighborhood.
Yeah, you did.
Having the exact same model house.
People don't know really, and we never thought about, we don't rehearse this thing. Tell them how we met.
We didn't talk about this on an episode?
I don't think so.
All right, well, if we did, you guys can hit that little button that skips it. But, no, I was 9 years old. And almost 10.
Oh, we did talk about this.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was moving to the neighborhood from New York.
I found out that you were moving into the neighborhood, and was super excited about that. My brother and I couldn't believe it.
Do you know who you found out from?
No,
I remember.
I found out from my mom.
No, but
she told me. I think she found out from
a veterinarian friend, Andrea Orsher.
Yes, Andrea Orsher,
who my dog still visits.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's how we found out, and we were practically waiting for you with questions.
Yeah,
about the
which is
wrestling
great.
business.
Thank you. And you and your brother Fred. And by the way, did you listen to our great All In Starcast special edition Bill Apter Chat Extra
Is
this
it now?
week?
I'm sorry. Is it now the Bill
It's
Apter
not.
Chat?
I'm doing
it's
that.
Not
no,
enough
no,
that it's
no.
the Apter Chat.
It's not. I'll tell you why I said that. I was brought back because we were in Chicago. That's where the offices were for Wow Magazine, and we put out a Bill Apter's Wow Extra.
Yeah.
So I was going to say the Apter Chat Extra, but I had Tic Tacs in my mouth as usual.
Oh God.
And
Yeah,
my first name
they
came
haven't
out.
contacted us, so we're going to
Not
stop
yet,
talking
Tic
about
and
them.
Tac. Right. But no, the Apter Chat special.
Okay.
You can
The
cut that
Josh
out of the
Shernoff
broad-
Apter Chat.
Yes, so says Shernoff. But did you listen to it?
I did. You know what? I listened
After
to it
we
as
did
it was
it?
being recorded.
Me too. That was great, but I hope
no,
all
but-
of you have.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but definitely in our archives at theapterchat.com. That's right. We now have archives at theapterchat.com where you can click on all that. Of course, if you follow us on any of our social media, Twitter at theapterchat, facebook.com/theapterchat, our YouTube channel. Very important thing to talk about here, Bill. Our YouTube channel is not youtube.com/theapterchat, but it could be, and it will be soon. You have to have 100 subscribers to be able to have a URL. So we're getting there.
Wait, can you spell URL?
URIL.
Oh, thank you.
So we have to have 100 to be able to get that URL, which would be so much easier to tell you guys. So go ahead and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know we have the YouTube channel. They know that I'm regularly on the One Wrestling video channel, and I will always be on there. And please keep subscribing and watching that as well.
But we have some great content available on the YouTube channel.
It's pretty good.
A ton of interviews that I was lucky enough to be able to conduct at StarCast. We have from the press conference at All In. Those are all up there on YouTube. You can go to theapterchat.com and click on the YouTube link. And
by the way, Scott Steiner gave you a piece of his mind talking about his love of the WWE.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe what he said.
Yeah, he had a lot to say.
Couldn't believe what he said.
Definitely check it out over at our YouTube channel. Like I said, theapterchat.com. Click on the YouTube channel, or you can just go to YouTube and type in the Apter Chat.
Wait a minute.
You're gonna find it anyway.
I just got something here.
What's that?
Off the teletype on the Podwaves here. We have been hired as a broadcast team because they love this so much. Mm-hmm. September 21st, Modern Vintage Wrestling would like us to team up and do a broadcast of their show in Flemington, New Jersey.
I'll be there.
And it's not the Flemington Fur Factory. It's not going to be there.
Oh, okay.
But if these people go to Modern Vintage Wrestling's Facebook page, they can find out where we're going to be. And this is going to be our first ever Apter Chat broadcast team.
Yes.
Off-site.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So Uncle Charlie, the promoter there, we can't wait to do this. So what else is happening here that we have so much Apter? By the way, Josh is also the producer of the show. So let's look down at the lineup here and what's next.
Well, it looks like it's time to throw a headlock on headlines. All right, what kind of headlines could we be talking about if we did not talk about StarCast and All In? But guess what? We're not going to talk about StarCast and All In.
Oh, come on, just a little bit.
No, because as we mentioned earlier on, if you want to hear all about what we have to say about StarCast and All In, you can go into our archives. If you're
backstage news from the two of us who were there.
We were so lucky to be able to be backstage at such an amazing event, a monumental moment in professional wrestling. It was awesome. It was a great time, and I will say one thing that was not in that episode.
Go right ahead.
So I'm upstairs in the arena there in my my box suite. I did mention that in the other one.
You paid for it, Josh. Come on.
I paid for it. Are you kidding me? Come on. So I'm up there with the Apter Chatters that won our giveaway, and I bump into a young man by the name of Rich Swan.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to tell this on Wednesday's broadcast.
Yeah, but no. Well, I'm telling it on Friday's broadcast. So I bump into Rich Swan coming out of the bathroom, and I had not seen Rich in this month was 10 years.
Wait, was this at All In or was this in Flushing?
This was it was right after Flushing.
Flushing, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right after I was in Flushing.
I couldn't
and
resist
before
that.
he
I'm
was.
sorry.
So this was at All In, and no, I got to see Rich Swan. So a fun fact for everyone out there who doesn't follow me on Twitter at So Says Shernoff, I tweeted out a nice picture of 10 years earlier. Rich Swan and myself in the ring. It was my last match as a professional wrestler, and it was his second match. And when he said to me, he's like, you look like Styles. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, man, how do you know 10 years later, like, do I really look the same? I don't know.
Your name was Rocky Styles.
It was Rocky Styles. And I said, I'm like, how do you remember? I'm like, dude, I just saw you on TV the last few years. You know, I'm seeing his face all the time. He said, you were my second match. That was a really important moment. And that felt really good to hear that. And Rich was a super professional, great guy. When I met him, it was a second match. He was just, mouth shut, eyes and ears open. And I am not going to suggest in any way, shape, or form that I passed any sort of torch to Rich Swan. He did more athletically in that match in that one match, in his second match, than I did my entire career. But it was a great match. One of my favorite matches I ever had, actually. And to find out years later when he signed with the WWE, because I had lost touch with him. I didn't really know the things that he had been doing.
But it's good you reconnected with him.
It was great.
In the bathroom.
Outside of the bathroom.
Outside of the
bathroom. Thank you very much. But, so Rich and I talked, and we exchanged numbers, and he will be a guest on the After Chat sometime in the future.
Well, that sounds great. So one of the main thing I want to talk about right now is the difference in the veterans versus today's guys.
Yes.
Did you see Monday Night Raw this week?
I did indeed.
When The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels came out separately, of course, I have not heard a crowd pop like that since almost the Attitude Era. They brought it back again, and it showed a magic that is just, I don't know, sometimes it's just not there, depending who it is. Like a Chris Jericho brings back that magic. The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were the Undertaker not only was physically rested, but verbally rested, because he was so focused. And Shawn Michaels' look of, I've lost it again, that whole look of he didn't believe what was going on, the whole look of sadness, elicited such great reactions from the crowd.
So something really neat. Huge Shawn Michaels fan. I've always, and of course, Undertaker.
You are, of course,
but I'm a huge Shawn Michaels fan. My life was really difficult in 1997 because I'm a huge Bret Hart fan as well. So that was a really difficult time for me, and we'll definitely do an episode on that. It's called Therapy with So Says Shernoff. But no. Shawn Michaels has had a tendency over the years since his retirement to come back as almost a caricature of himself, to just be happy-go-lucky, HB Shizzle, which I hate. I absolutely hate that. It's so stupid. But love the guy, but it's so stupid. He part of what made Shawn that intensity, that emotion that I always loved in watching him in the ring or in his promos, had not been there in years. And understandably, I mean, he was retired, But Monday night, we got to see that.
It was back.
We got to see, and my opinion, he's never wrestling again. I don't think he's ever coming back. But, man, for a second there.
You know what?
For a second there, you're like,
I'm going to tell you something. This is just my opinion. I don't know how old his kid or kids are at this point. But I think
I think they're in their teens.
Yeah, but I think as big as the business is right now, just like Shane McMahon's kids, that let's do it one more time and get to see our father out there. He's a very close family person. With them yelling one more time, one more match, you have to believe that they knew, WWE knew before when he was going to do this last night, those chants were going to happen, and the probability of him against someone, maybe he'll referee the match between The Undertaker.
I thought about that. He said he'd be there.
Yeah. But maybe this will accelerate, or maybe next week on Raw.
Triple H will be there next week on Raw.
So maybe something's going to go on with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker that will take us to Australia.
So, so my feeling on Shawn Michaels having another match is I don't see him having another match, but I do see one scenario where I think he would come back. He's spoken about, like, you know, against AJ Styles, going like, that's all well and good, but what would it do for anyone? Like, it doesn't, you know, and something like that I almost look at and say, let it be a dream match. It's never going to live up to what people have in their mind. Because it's not realistic. What people have in their mind of it'll be the greatest thing ever, Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles, you don't know if they're even going to have any in-ring chemistry. Sometimes they can be two amazing wrestlers who just won't have that chemistry. I think Shawn Michaels, the man, not the character, I think the thing that could bring him back, in my opinion, don't know this, don't know him, you know, but I would just, from listening to him, if The Undertaker came to him and said, I want you to be my last match, my final match, I want you to come out of retirement for one last match.
But where does that
leave the whole? You retire me.
Yeah, but where does that leave the whole Triple H scenario?
Well, I'm getting
here?
to that. No, I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about in the future.
No, this has got to happen now. Whatever's going on
here.
Well,
no, what I'm saying. Well, no. I mean, look, it doesn't have to happen now. Think of it this way: he's been retired for almost 8 years.
Yeah, but it's right now.
And look how fresh it was 8 years.
I know,
later.
but it's on topic right now. It looks like they're going to do something with this in the very near future.
I think they're just kind of hyping it up. I think we'll be involved in some form or fashion, but. Look, it could be in the near future. It could be them in October. It could be Triple H and Undertaker in October in Australia, and then it could be Shawn and Undertaker at WrestleMania,
avenging Triple H.
Right, but
no,
this is why I don't think it will happen.
Survivor Series, maybe.
No, that's a
no.
If Mr. WrestleMania is coming out of retirement, you know, it's not gonna be a Survivor Series. I don't think, but I don't think it's. And I preface this by saying I don't think it's gonna happen. I think. The only person that could get him to come out of retirement would be The Undertaker in real life coming to him and saying, this would mean so much to me. I'd like you to do this. I think that would be enough for him to do it. However, I don't. Where do you go with that?
There's going to be something. There's going to be something in next week. Triple H is on next week. Maybe The Undertaker comes out again. And somehow something's going to happen between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels to get Michaels and The Undertaker in the ring together.
Yeah, but I don't see it being a match.
I don't know. It's going to be something.
But circling back around, though, to what you were talking about with the differences between the veterans and the newer people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something from last night that would be a perfect example. Baron Corbin and Finn Balor backstage interaction with each other.
Yeah.
So I've been accused of throwing softballs on this show. And people have said to me...
At me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
They don't say... I throw everything at you.
You do.
Here's my water bottle.
Whoa.
There you go.
I love slapstick. It's good.
But I'm going to slap you with a stick. Right. Is that what you're saying? Finn Balor and Baron Corbin. And I've been saying this for weeks to people that are not putting a microphone in my face. But I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of that interaction at all. I think it ran its course before it even started. There's no chemistry between them. I think Finn Balor is an amazing talent that they just need to take the cartridge out, blow on it, and put it back in because it's not working. And Baron Corbin, I'm not a fan of, to be honest. And I'm not talking about the guy personally. I'm not even talking about his in-ring work.
Well,
I'm just.
What's your question here?
It's not a question. I'm making a.
Oh,
I'm,
I thought you said you're throwing softballs at me.
No,
I
know. I've been throwing. No, people said I'm throwing softballs, so I'm going to throw a hard ball. And what I'm going to say is, I think it was garbage. I think that their backstage interaction was awful. It was some of the worst acting I've seen on the show in a very long time.
Opinions
Baron Corbin,
of So Says Shernoff
Yes.
do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Apter Chat.
And listen, and I am not going to. This has nothing to do with these guys personally. This has nothing to do with their abilities.
No, but they're working with what they're given here.
Yes, but what I am going to say is, look, Baron Corbin is not a very good talker. He's not a very good actor.
He's a constable.
So here's my feeling. I'm not coming down on Baron Corbin. I know it sounds like I am, but what I'm saying is anyone, the worst actor, worst talker in the world, if you work for the WWE and they come to you and say, hey, here's your script, here's what you're going to do, you're not going to go, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm not very good at talking on the microphone. No, you're going to do it. You're going to do what you're told to do.
Of course.
I don't blame him or Finn Balor for being in this program at all. What I'm saying is, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
But what does this have to do with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker?
Everything. Because bringing Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker back for that promo, I know you're trying to sell the network subscriptions for this match in Australia. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think it also had a negative because you are now on the same program holding up, and I'm giving that example, an interaction between Finn Balor and Baron Corbin held up against an interaction between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels.
Well, nothing on that Monday night show could have matched the intensity of that.
That's true.
Even the whole Shield thing and Strowman and Ziggler and
That's true.
McIntyre.
The tough thing is when you have a couple of guys in their 50s, one has been retired for almost a decade. The other one has been retired as an active competitor more than once in a blue moon for a number of years. And they come out here and they just... It was like saying, hey, guys.
They blew the crowd away.
Hey, guys, this is how you really do it.
Yeah.
And again, like, look, I'm willing. This is my opinion, and some people are going to agree with me. Some people are not going to agree with me. I don't mean any offense to the guys, to Baron Corbin or
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor. But it wasn't entertaining. It wasn't good. Whoever wrote it, it was.
Would it have been more entertaining and better if The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had not done what they did?
No.
Okay.
It wouldn't have, no. It wouldn't have been, but it would not have been as exposed for how bad it was comparatively. And that's why I'm bringing it up because I think that's a very
very
I'm
good
curious
point.
your opinion. I know that you are known in the wrestling business as the nicest guy in the world. Yeah. And that's not a gimmick. It's a shoot.
It's
but your opinion on it has got to be. You don't have to be as harsh as I'm being on them, but
here's my opinion. My opinion is no one could do what these two veterans did. They came from an era that people still yearn for.
Right.
Actually, people still want that whole Attitude Era back, but they can't do it. And it's not just the performers, the workers, the wrestlers. It's we can't do this because we're a public company. We can't say this because you know what I'm saying.
But that's and that's what a lot of people will say about it.
That's why you can't do the Attitude Era anymore.
Yeah, and that's fine. But honestly, the Attitude Era was not as good as people will remember as far as what their TV 14 stuff was. I wasn't a huge fan of certainly the way that the women were treated. I don't think anyone would stand for that type of content,
but you asked
even if they were TV 14.
But you asked my question. You asked the question about what I thought about this whole situation, and it's because of the professionalism and the reputation of those two people in the ring. Nothing could have been better on that show than that.
Okay, but and I want to go into
should
this more.
Something have been? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I don't think that that's a fair response to how bad the shows have been, in my opinion. I don't think it's fair because what kind of a company is it if you just look at it and you go, oh, well, those guys were really good. We can't expect our guys to be this good. Yeah, you can.
I don't think they're looking at it that way. I think that
Why is Baron Corbin in that position? Why? Because you have a roster full of people that could do that could do a better backstage promo than him. So why aren't they?
Well, there are a lot of people, including my son, who think Baron Corbin, Constable Corbin, is great.
Brandon thinks that.
Yes, yeah. So you can take that up with him. But no. What I'm saying is,
I'm gonna.
That's
text
fine.
him.
But you can take a handful of people, and there are people that will agree with you, but there's a lot of people who will disagree with you as well.
Yeah, and
it's whatever it takes.
Fine.
But my bottom line on this, I don't want to keep dragging this out. My bottom line is that here you have two super power performers who have incredible legacies, and they know how to do this thing in the highest way possible. I think a lot of times the fans today don't get to see the aura that people like this created, because there aren't people around right now that have created this kind of aura.
So I gave a hard time to Baron Corbin here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that does raise the question. You put Baron Corbin in the Attitude Era. And I'm not talking about Attitude Era because it was TV-14, because nothing Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker did last night was TV-14.
No, definitely not.
And that's...
It's just believable.
Right.
And their characters. You see The Undertaker come out, the entrance alone...
And that was
Wait. The entrance alone already has you in that zone.
Yes, and that was the point that I was trying to make about when I was saying the Attitude Era, and the violence of it, or the whatever, the sex and all that stuff that it was all about.
Kiss my ass.
Yeah, but my point is that may have grabbed the attention of the college kids having their drinking beer and watching Stone Cold. I get that, but these guys were able to do something. The roster from the Attitude Era...
They're unforgettable characters.
Yes. So my question is, Baron Corbin, Finn Balor. Finn Balor, unquestionably a fantastic in-ring competitor.
Yeah.
And Baron Corbin, honestly, he was over in NXT.
Uh-huh.
It was done right. So that begs the question of, like I said before, it's not Baron Corbin's fault. Do you think those guys would have thrived? Who on this roster do you think would have thrived in the Attitude Era?
Oh, my goodness. Well, the Shield.
Okay.
Strowman. Mm-hmm. Probably McIntyre. Probably Dolph Ziggler. I mean,
do you
just
think
some examples.
Baron Corbin and Finn Balor would have?
The Dragon, Finn Balor would have.
The Demon?
The Demon. Yeah, I said the Dragon. That's Ricky Steamboat. Yeah, the Demon Balor would have. Mm-hmm. Corbin, depending upon what they created for him.
Right. And I think that's kind of...
It all depends what they create. Back in those days, they were unforgettable characters. Today, it's not the unforgettable characters.
And why isn't it, in your opinion?
It captures the attention and the imagination of the kids waiting at the bus stop. I always say this. But it's still not going to have that long-lasting imagery in your mind of someone like an Undertaker or Shawn Michaels.
But why do you think it's because these guys are working from scripts and aren't able to come into their own? That maybe if they had a little more leeway, that they could kind of find themselves.
I think they're still trying to find. There's so much in a 3-hour show that's going on, and there's a lot of the talent that's there, but it's almost like they're generic. They're not catching on with people. I think that's what it might be.
Okay.
All right? Drove me nuts today.
What's that?
I called a company, and I was put on hold and kept on hold, and I practically was just getting angry, but I almost fell asleep that I was on hold so long. I was hoping, something like I heard about this company called Smart Hold.
Ah, Smart Hold.
Smart Hold, you know what it is?
What is it?
It's a message on hold service. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you get put on hold, there's no dead silence. You're not going to sit there and like and doze off. And you know what?
What?
This is so cheap, anybody can afford it.
How much is
And
it?
it's so-
$150, something like that, a month?
Message on hold service
Right.
for only $35 a month.
There's no way.
No. $35 per month.
You know what?
And
There's got to be contracts. I
no.
get it. They lock you into a contract.
I'm sorry,
No?
that's the incorrect answer. There are no contracts. So let me give you the skinny on this. All right? If you run a business and you place callers on hold, one of your most effective and least expensive marketing tools would be message on hold from Smart Hold. So with Smart Hold, they make the caller's hold time fun, enjoyable, and informative while making the caller's hold time feel much shorter. It also makes your company sound more professional. So if you go to www.smart-hold.com, that's that little dash, Josh. You know where that is, right?
Yeah,
Don't
not
spell out
not a
dash.
tilde.
And order today. That's www.smart-hold.com, or just go to Google and put in Smart Hold and you'll find it there. So be smart and get smart. Hold.
So our guest today,
I do an imitation of him.
of course you do.
Do you know what he said about my book?
What?
Bill Apter's book is horrible because he doesn't bury anybody.
He did say that. You know what? You're not the only one who does an imitation of him. Bruce Pritchard from Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard
Yes.
is very well known for his imitation. But as we learned in this interview, Jim Cornette says that he's actually doing an imitation of JR, doing an imitation of Jim Cornette. And we got Jim Cornette to do Bruce Pritchard doing JR, doing Jim Cornette. And that
did.
that was something to listen to.
Yeah, it was something
with,
to
with
listen
Jim
to.
Cornette.
Yes.
So yeah,
But we talked so much about Cornette's career, about some of the people that he managed, and why managers are not even around anymore.
yeah, it was a great interview with Jim Cornette. So without any further ado, Jim Cornette. All right, here to chat with us, one of the greatest managers of all time, James E. Cornette. Mr. Cornette, welcome to the Apter Chat.
Well, that was a flowery introduction,
Wait a
not
minute.
quite as opulent as I was hoping for, but I'll take that.
But-
Josh and wonderful Willie, it's wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you. And I noticed he called you Mr. Cornette, but I get, hey, Bill.
Well,
Yeah, well, Bill, you have to earn things like respect.
exactly.
Oh, 51 years, I don't have it yet, huh?
Well, you're working on it anytime now. Anytime it'll come through.
Well, somebody's got to let me know. But I wanted, you called him Mr. Cornette, and you
Yes.
call me Bill. But do you know, I think I was Mr. Apter to Jim Cornette way, way, way back when he had a camera and he was running around the ring shooting pictures, right?
Well, that's true because I was always taught to be respectful of my elders, and you being 30, 40 years older than me at the time, the least that I could do was show you some respect.
That's it. That's it. But I remember back in the days in Memphis and Louisville, of course, that you used to shoot pictures, and you shot them for the programs down there, and you sent pictures our way back in the magazines. And the one set of pictures that everybody always sees, but so few people know that you were the photographer, was the Jerry the King Lawler versus Andy Kaufman, the original match.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they just did a retrospective on the anniversary of that. I think last year with the Memphis newspaper, they dug out the old newspaper files, and I saw for the first time a picture of me standing behind the stretcher that was carrying Andy Kaufman out, and I'm trying not to trip over some old woman holding my camera as I'm jockeying for a better position to take the picture from the other side. So I actually have a picture of me and Andy Kaufman. He didn't look too good at the time.
No, he didn't.
But I look good enough for both of us.
That what you always did. You always did. And the amazing thing was for the magazines, I remember after introducing Andy to Jerry, and then that put the key in the ignition, and you guys, down there in Tennessee took that over, and it was really the first what turned into sports entertainment. But the magazines, what baffled me was my boss, Stanley Weston, the publisher of the magazines, after all that went on, including the David Letterman show, he wouldn't put it on the cover. He says he was like Vince Sr. This is entertainment. It's not wrestling. So Lawler, actually, the day after the David Letterman show, you might not even know this, Jerry Lawler was to come up to our magazine offices to do photos and be interviewed about the whole Andy Kaufman thing that was just going to be in a column. And the publisher, rather than picking him up in a limo or a car, he had to take the Long Island Railroad, and it was late. It was late.
Well, you never did have that big of a budget to work with, Bill. You did it for the love of the game, and you had all of us soldiers following you into battle.
Well,
but I tell you, here's the funny part, maybe the ironic part. Vince Sr. thought that it would be too showbiz and too entertainment and make the business look phony to have Andy Kaufman involved, and Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler's match is the one thing that most people believed about wrestling for the last 35 years.
That's right.
That's a really good point.
And a lot of people have told me that Vince Jr. Has said for years that that's the one storyline that he wishes he would have had.
Oh, yeah. Well, and as a matter of fact, when you think about this, he got the chance to have the first major celebrity crossover of the modern era. You know, I mean, the celebs were playing with Gorgeous George years ago, but the modern era, he got beat before Cyndi Lauper, before Rock and Wrestling, before Liberace, WrestleMania, the whole 9 yards. There was Andy Kaufman because of Willie Apter.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
We got him.
Maybe I should start calling you Mr. Apter.
Oh, here we go. And finally, after 50 years.
Let's not get carried away.
See, you had to get me on a show, Bill.
Of course.
Just to get some respect around here.
Yeah, no respect at all, which Jerry Lawler's favorite comedian in the whole world. Hey, no respect at all.
Oh, I still have the picture that you may have taken it of him at Dangerfield.
I did take that photo that night. We took Jerry. This was that same weekend of the David Letterman show, and I took him to Dangerfield's, and we didn't ever expect Rodney Dangerfield to be there, and he was standing at the bar, and Jerry said, "Hey, Bill, we'll take a picture of us together." And Rodney Dangerfield says, "Hey, you and Andy Kaufman were great last night." And I'm looking, and my camera was back in the hotel. I had to run 20 blocks in Midtown Manhattan, go up to the Helmsley Palace Hotel, to my room there, and get the camera and come back, and Rodney Dangerfield waited for us.
Oh, good God.
Could you imagine that nowadays with cell phones?
Well, no, because he's dead.
Well,
thank you.
Well, he's not going anywhere, though, I guess, so it'd probably be easier now than it would have been then.
He did. What was your, did you have any interaction with, well, before I ask you about interaction with Andy Kaufman, and I didn't know this was the way that the interview was going to go, but people love to hear about the whole Andy Kaufman thing. But the New York State Athletic Commission also didn't want to give him a license to wrestle because he was to them, he was a comedian. He hated that word, but they weren't going to let a celebrity wrestle in that ring.
Well, luckily, the state of Tennessee had no such qualms. As a matter of fact, I think Andy was probably still bigger than about 3 or 4 of the guys on the TV show that Saturday morning that were doing jobs. So,
yeah, that's unbelievable. Now, what about your interaction with Andy Kaufman as the photographer there? Did you have any backstage not meetings, but taking posed pictures of him? Did you take some of those pictures?
Yeah, I actually, before that, I have a picture that I've not released to the public because before that, Lawler knew that he was actually going to wrestle Andy at some point. The first time that Andy came down for just to wrestle, women from the crowd, of course, Lawler had to get some pictures of him backstage shaking Andy's hand and everything, and, just because a superstar, big TV star is there. And then later on, when they got involved in the thing, I just put those back in the vault and didn't let them out in public because I was afraid it'd blow the deal. But several times I got to take some posed pictures of Andy, and I mean, he was nice, and he wasn't really talkative or taking the whole place over like a star would have because he was so happy to be there and kind of what's the word I'm searching for? Not necessarily nervous, but just kind of awed by the whole thing. So
he was polite.
He was nice and spoke when spoken to.
Yeah, he was very polite. I found him very quiet and very respectful and very polite. So 2018, let's say none of that had happened, and Vince Jr. now has Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler, and he's ready to do this. How believable would that story be today?
Well, Lawler still looks the same, but I don't know what Andy would look like.
No, I'm saying let's say.
Oh, they're in their
them,
primes. I was going to say, now, he's 70 years old, Bill. Truthfully, as long as it was Andy and Lawler and they just let them do what they were going to do, it would always work, because that was the reason, to me, and I did a long column on this for Fighting Spirit magazine over in the UK here a while back.
Yes.
It was the two perfect guys to do what they did, because it was even for wrestling, it was a preposterous situation. But because both of them were so dedicated to making people believe it, and because both of them were so good at making people believe what they said and did, that it was a perfect combination. Nobody else in wrestling could have got that out of Andy, and there was probably not another celebrity in Hollywood that could have made that transition to being a great wrestling performer right off the top of his head, because Andy loved it and he'd studied it.
Andy wanted to be, on the talks I had with him, he wanted so much to be Buddy Rogers or Fred Blassie.
Yeah, and he had the knack, even though that you knew that he was this lovable TV comedian, when he would do his thing and cut the promos and do the wrestling appearances, he wasn't like a celebrity playing wrestler. It got to the point where you believed that he was into this. He carried it so far that you believed that he really had lost his mind and he thought he was, the intergender champion, and it was perfect. And Lawler was able to take advantage of it.
Go ahead.
Well, because he had such command of the people, and his promos were believable, and it wasn't a situation where the people came to see the match like what's going to happen. It was like they came specifically because they knew Lawler was going to break Andy in half.
I'm going to tell you something I haven't told more than 2 or 3 people. I've never told this on the air before, but I was a big fan of the show.
The paternity results came back.
How did you know? It's a boy. I had always wanted to meet some of the cast. I was a stage door Johnny growing up. I wanted to meet celebrities all the time. And I remember probably 2 years after the whole Lawler-Andy Kaufman thing, I was in Manhattan, and there was a show called I'm Not Rappaport. And one of the performers in that show was Judd Hirsch. And I said, you know what? I've got to meet Judd Hirsch because of my connection that I had with Andy. And I waited there by the stage door, and there were a few fans there. And I got to him and I said, Judd, my name is Bill Apter. I'm the guy that introduced Andy Kaufman to Jerry Lawler. And he stopped and he looked at me and he looked at the fans. He said, can I talk to you for a minute over here alone? I said, sure. And he said, I don't have anything against you personally, but that was the worst thing that ever happened to our show, because he didn't want to rehearse. He didn't want to do anything. Wow. All he wanted to do was be a wrestler, talk about wrestling. And I'm not, again, saying anything bad about you, sir, but I wish you wouldn't have done that. True story.
So Bill Apter is not on Judd Hirsch's Christmas card list.
I'm going to cross him off our list of guests for the Apter Chat. You know what? Shifting gears to something going on in 2018, a lot of people nowadays are familiar with you through Bruce Pritchard's impersonation of you. And it's obviously become a pretty big part of their show.
Well, let's face it. I mean, come on. I am the most entertaining person that Bruce knows, and he's got to have something to hook the fans.
The truth.
So what are your thoughts on it? Has he done? I'm sure he's done this. I know he's done this impersonation because he said something about it that I'm going to ask you about in a second. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, but see, everybody, he's not impersonating me. He's impersonating Jim Ross impersonating me.
Really?
And that therein lies the whole key to the thing, because JR's been doing that for 25 years. But Bruce's impersonation is, because he kind of sounds like Mickey Mouse on helium, but he's doing JR doing me. So it's an impersonation of an impersonation.
So I heard, I think it may have been on their podcast, Bruce Pritchard saying what you really need to hear is Jim Cornette impersonating Bruce Pritchard impersonating Jim Cornette. Is that something that we might be able to get out of you?
Oh, goddamn! Goddamn! I did triple cheese. That's my. I don't know. I don't know where's gone. See.
Somebody talking about Mickey Mouse on helium just now?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's me doing Bruce, doing JR, doing me, and every time you remove it one more person, it gets higher.
It just gets higher and higher.
So wait a minute. That leads me up to, as you know, when you and I get together, we're always, you always say to me, Willie Abner. And I said, Jimmy Cornette, if you will. We start going right into the American Dream. Do you do any other wrestling imitations that I don't know about?
Well, a long time ago, Bill Apter, I used to do a real good Terry Funk. But sometime between then and now, I don't know. I think it was that time that my brother Dory took that dog out behind the barn, and I never saw that dog again. And as a result, it just made me so upset, Bill Apter. I went ahead and I just tried to take that Terry Funk impersonation out of my repertoire.
That was
awesome.
really not
That was
too
really
good.
great.
No,
That was great.
I used to do a Terry Funk, but one of my favorite ones, we'll do a couple of these back and forth, is you, Jim, you be the announcer. I'm Bruno Sammartino. You be the announcer and ask me if I hate, and just throw a wrestler's name in there, whoever it is.
Well, we're back on All-Star Wrestling with Bruno Sammartino. And Bruno, I've got to ask you your personal feelings, if you will, sir, on Crusher Verdue.
No, you have to ask me if I hate him.
Do you hate Crusher Verdue?
You know something? This Crusher Verdue guy, doggone it, he's a big guy. He comes from Spain. He's got this manager, Tony Angelo. But do I hate Crusher Verdue? Hate is a very strong word. I hold a lot of animosity toward him. That was Bruno's line. He never hated anybody. He always held animosity.
And the animosity would increase over the 3 shots in the garden until finally they were in the cage.
Absolutely. So you did Terry Funk. Sometimes I can do the Dory voice, not often, because Dory's like a quiet.
I feel like that's a rare one.
Yeah, Dory would be, Terry and I, we're going to Japan next week, and it's going to be a good show. It's more like Dory. But no, your Terry Funk was good.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Who else do you do?
Your Elvis was good as well.
Yeah.
Well, and also my old friend, you remember Troy Graham, the Dream Machine?
Oh, of course.
The man that walked that barbed wire fence 32,000 miles barefooted, eat steel wool like cake, sopped lightning with bread, picked up blue guinea rock, caught 9,000 buckshot from Maine to Spain on a choo-choo train. I was born in the heat of the desert. My mama died giving me life. The pride and the love of a father blamed for the loss of his wife, Bill Apter. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
He took all of his stuff from Bo Diddley and Tom Boogaloo Shaft.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I wanted to start talking about managers right now, but before we do that, I got to give you my 2 best manager imitations. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So the first one is, again, you be the broadcaster and ask the Grand Wizard of Wrestling what Stan Stasiak is going to do to his opponent.
And we're back here on All-Star Wrestling, Grand Wizard of Wrestling. I have to ask you this. What in the world is Stan the Man Stasiak, the master of the heart punch, going to do to his next opponent?
Mr. McMahon, let me tell you something. We have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars taking x-rays of that little ugly heart of Pedro Morales. Stan the Man Stasiak will hit him with the heart punch, and it's been your pleasure to hear my round, dulcet, pear-shaped tones.
The Grand Wizard of Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen,
This is
a.k.a. Abdullah Farouk, a.k.a. Ernie Roth, a.k.a. Mr. Clean, a.k.a. Jay Wellington Radcliffe.
Yeah. He would have loved to have been in this day and age of sports entertainment. Boy, that would have been his glory days.
Just the podcast alone for those guys. Can you imagine Captain Lou and the Grand Wizard on a reality TV show?
I do a Lou Albano. Do you have one?
Say again?
I do a Lou Albano. Do you have one?
I would rather hear yours.
All right, hold on. Well, it's the captain speaking, brother. I've got it all: ability, agility, guts, maneuverability, backward movement, forward movement. That's my Captain Lou.
My favorite Lou Albano line was every time I would see him at a dinner, at a function, at a show with the WWF, at the Cauliflower, wherever it may be. If I was wearing a suit, he'd say, Cornette, I hope that shirt's waterproof because that tie's a real pisser.
I've heard that. So there were so many great managers through history. I think I can do, if I remember correctly, my old Gary Hart imitation. Gary Hart was, my man, all you do, you go in the ring, do your thing, we go out, have dinner, we go get some girls, we get drunk, we come back and do it again tomorrow. Right?
My favorite Gary Hart line was what he told us when we had to work with, remember Silo Sam, Little John Harris?
Of course.
When we had to work with him in Texas Stadium at the big match, it was Midnight in the Fantastics, and he was in their corner.
Parade of Champions. Yeah.
Yes, and at Texas Stadium, and Gary said, just remember, repetition is the key when dealing with goofs. And we told him over and over and over again, Little John, here's what you're going to do, here's what you're going to do, here's what you're going to do. It still didn't work. He didn't do it right, screwed the whole thing up. But Gary always taught me that repetition is the key when dealing with goofs.
So obviously you came around in a time where managers were a really big part of the product. Today, obviously, they're not. Do you think that there's something lacking? Do you think that managers could fit into, because obviously the business is so different than it was in a lot of respects. Do you think managers are something that really needs to come back? And do you think if they did come back that they would be used in a beneficial way? Would it work today? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They definitely would be more entertaining than some of the people giving promos these days. Whether they need to come back and would be used right, it depends on Vince. If Vince decides he's going to use managers, then everybody else copies what Vince does, so they're going to use managers too. But then the problem becomes, where are they? Because obviously Heyman is a classic example. It can still work in today's environment because all you need is a guy that represents the wrestler who can't talk or can't talk that well, and it's his manager. I mean, it's not that hard to understand. This isn't reinventing the wheel. But just like tag teams and main events, until the WWF starts, the industry leader does it, nobody's going to follow suit, and then where would they be? Because I'm certainly not coming out of retirement. I can't believe Heyman still has the energy and inclination to do this on a regular basis.
When you talk about the energy that you see with him, when he he also, as you know, started off as a ringside photographer, but through all these years of the stuff that he's done, to see that incredible amount of energy that he still brings to this is mind-boggling sometimes.
Oh, it is, because I got to be honest with you, I don't care. I really could not muster up enough enthusiasm to do this on a regular basis again. But Paul is, remember now, about almost 5 years younger than me, and think about that. Look at me now and look at him. Maybe, and I'm 5 years older than he is. Maybe it's a good thing that I retired because I'm being preserved better. But being on the road is obviously, the gravity is dragging him down.
Yeah, but you have not retired. You're doing conventions. You're doing your one-man shows everywhere. So, retired, you're out of sight.
Well, not everywhere. Not everywhere. Just a few selected locations. But no, retired from managing and from actively. I like to say about professional wrestling, if you see something that you didn't like, you can't blame me. I didn't have anything to do with it. I wasn't even there. But I will be in Philly, your backyard, Willie, and I've put the invitation out. You may have an international commitment then, but you have to go all the way across the state line. But I'm going to be in Philly September 14th through 16th at the Keystone Comic Con, and I am doing the live Jim Cornette Experience stand-up meltdown show on Friday night the 14th, followed by the VIP Experience Extra Cheese with Jim Cornette, where you get a free picture, a free photo op, VIP seating at the show, extra Q&A / private hangout session, and a cheesesteak. Because Andy Kaufman got the people milk and cookies, so I'm getting them cheesesteaks in Philly.
Right.
So
that's right.
you can go, as a matter of fact, to KeystoneComicCon.com, or if you want to just take the shortcut to get the tickets to my event, tinyurl.com/corny in Philly. It's going to be a gathering of the cult of Cornette, and that's the 30th anniversary, by the way, of the week of us defeating, the Midnight Express defeating Tully and R and the Four Horsemen right there in Philly down the street at the Civic Center for the NWA World Tag Team title.
That's right.
Oh. We're going to watch the match on the big screen, the only video of that match, which was not ever taped for television. It's a bootleg, folks, and we're going to talk about that and a bunch of Philadelphia memories. My only Northeastern appearance of 2018.
Wait a minute.
I get out about a half a dozen times a year now. I pick my spot.
If it's a bootleg, and we're asking the people in Philly, we're like, yo, come on, Cornette's going to show a bootleg video. This is great.
Oh yeah, well, bootleg videos started there, didn't they?
No, I love Philly. It's I currently live in the burbs of Philly, and I just it's a great town. We're glad you're coming into there. Some of the people have written in when we mentioned we were going to do this, and one of the fans wanted to know whatever happened to Mama Cornette.
Mama Cornette has been retired to the Hall of Fame of wrestling gimmicks that were never seen in public. Think about this now, Bill. Can you, in the 125-year history of professional wrestling, has there ever been a bigger name in wrestling that was never seen, never heard, never appeared on a show, never made a television taping, and was never actually advertised to be in public anywhere?
There were rumors that Mama Cornette was really Miss Atlanta Lively. Is there any truth to that?
That would no. I have no recollection of that. But I will say also, I think it was slander on the part of somebody in your office, like that no good Matt Brock or Dan Shockett or somebody like that my mother stuffed the ballot box the year that I won Manager of the Year.
And by the way, Dan Shockett was a real person. A lot of people think he and Eddie Elner were not real. Dan died from cancer at a very young age, and Eddie Elner, who took his place, runs a place called Yoga Soup in California. You can find that on the internet, where you can find everything else.
Is he sponsoring the show?
I can't believe who would think that those were not real people. And of course, I had those many great bull sessions with Matt Brock over the typewriter and the vodka.
You did. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, but I get what people at most of the convention fans always come over to me. Hey, Bill, how's Dan Shockett and Eddie Elner? Ha ha ha! And they were real.
Those people must have thought that you were schizophrenic. You were like Sybil. You had 27 different personalities.
They did, right? After sitting at a typewriter, when I worked with so many great teams of people to put those magazines together, but I was the guy out in the field. I was the guy that everybody got to know out there.
You were the guy out in the field.
Yeah,
Bill.
Yeah. I was the soldier for the company.
Well, if it makes you feel any better with this podcast, I'm more than happy to take as much credit away from you.
Thank you. No, but I got blamed. I got blamed for stories regularly that I never wrote. A wrestler would come over with a magazine. Who did you write this crap? No, bullshit. And that was it. I never cursed.
You know
on the air.
that story. The story is still circulating about Vince Sr. getting hot about the story about Andre and Lawler, and that match. I'm still answering questions about that match because I was there. That was in Louisville, the only time that Lawler ever had a single match with Andre.
Yeah.
And I was on one side of the ring. Mike Shields, who took the pictures for that article, was on the other side of the ring. He'd come up from Nashville, and he took a picture of Lawler in that headlock. Or Lawler with the headlock on Andre, and Andre standing up underneath him, so Lawler's feet were off the ground, and I'm in the bottom corner of the picture shooting it from the other side. You can see me with my camera up. That's the first time I ever had my picture taken with Jerry Lawler.
Wow.
So speaking of Louisville, I wanted to ask you how Kenny Bolin is doing these days.
Oh, I'll tell you, his health is bad. You know, his health is. You know his doctor. You know his doctor, Dr. Vinny Boombots?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you, no, he went to his doctor last week. He said, "Doctor, what's the matter with me? Every morning I get up in the mirror, I look in the mirror, I throw up." The doctor said, "I don't know, but your eyesight's perfect." He said, but wait, you got to help me. Look, my teeth are all yellow. The doctor said, "Wear a brown tie." I don't know about Kenny. You know, he's been on the downhill slide ever since he told his son about the birds and the bees, and his son told him about his wife and the butcher.
Oh, I heard about that too.
Yeah, it was terrible.
No, we had heard that he was sick recently, so we were wondering if you had
Mentally or
no, that's always been.
Yeah, no, he's once again he's been sprung from the hospital. He got get well cards from all of his nurses, and they as a matter of fact they were very sincere in saying that he needed to be discharged immediately. They said that there was nothing the matter with him. Actually, they said they couldn't do anything more for him. I think that's the way they put it.
All right.
Wow.
So one last question now. One last question here is every time I hear Jim Cornette on a podcast or a live show, people are always saying Cornette hates everybody. And I said that's not true. Other than, I think, me, who else do you really like in this business? I know, like Bobby.
I thought you were going to ask me who you really hate.
No, who you really like.
I like almost everybody. I'm very easy to please. You know this, Bill.
I do.
I'm very easy to please. No, I like everybody that was either in the ring before 1990 or wrestles like it. And if it's these people, the younger generation that wrestle the blow up dolls and the grade school kids, them I'd like to have them boiled in oil and sell their fat for soap.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I'm full of love, Bill. I got love in the air. I should have been Brother Love, except I had a gimmick that actually drew money.
Ooh.
Okay. Now, a question off of that with the new generation. Do you think that there's anything? I mean, you have a very specific way of how you feel wrestling should go, and I'm certainly not saying that that's wrong. Do you think there's any way that we can bring the business back to the way that it used to be in some respects? Or do you think it's so far gone?
No, not really. And that's the thing. Why, I roast these guys over the coals because it's taking a bad situation and making it worse. It's like your house is on fire, let's pour some gasoline on it. When in the days when wrestling was more controlled by the experienced and responsible promoters and bookers and matchmakers, guys wouldn't have been allowed to do stuff like that they do, whether setting themselves on fire or, using the same move 72 times in a match, or having matches with blow-up dolls, or having a match with a man and a woman, unless you're Andy Kaufman. Those things wouldn't have been allowed because the veteran promoters and bookers understood that it might allow that one guy doing it to get over.
Right.
But it was more important for the business to be over and other people to be over instead of that one guy. Why should the business be made to look foolish at just for this one person? So I think now that there's no control over these guys, people can set each other on fire. They can jump off the roof. They can do these ridiculous spots and stunts. And it doesn't really, it bothers me just because I don't think people like that should be allowed in our business after all the sweat and the blood and the tears and the effort that me and so many other people have gone to get into it and do it right. Now that they'll just let anybody involved. But it's not my future. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. If these guys want to put themselves in an iron lung doing foolish stuff that they shouldn't be doing in front of very few people and often cases for very little money, that's fine because I'm still going to be here on my couch with my big screen. Yeah. So it's not my future, it's theirs. But if they would learn to connect with people emotionally and have some passion and some fire and some energy in their performance instead of just constantly doing silly things and the same thing that everybody else does and taking more and more chances, then they could get over as themselves rather than, everybody knows that Mick Foley was thrown off the Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker because Mick Foley was already a star on his own. but the guy that goes viral and gets 2 million views on YouTube because he set himself on fire and did a diving headbutt off the roof, he's always going to be remembered as, hey, that stupid guy that set himself on fire and did the diving headbutt off the roof.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to know his name.
You saw my spot on Twitter?
Was that you? I couldn't.
Yeah,
The guy, when his head was on fire, I couldn't really tell. I knew he was bald.
That was comb over. Respect the comb over. It's because you mentioned Paul Heyman before. Gets me, of course, to the opinion that you still watch the current product. If Jim Cornette could pick somebody from Jim Cornette's prime days to pull out of there and want to manage, would there be one guy in the current WWE roster that you would say, I could have worked great with that guy?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't watch much, so I don't want to leave anybody out because I don't know the entire roster, but I've been a fan of one particular guy since I first saw him in Ring of Honor 8 years ago, and he was Tyler Black then, but he's Seth Rollins now.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think he's the whole package. He can work. He sounds good. He looks good. He's got the size. He's got the athletic ability. When I knew him, and hopefully nothing has changed, he was a good kid with no bad habits. And, there's still some of the old OVW crowd up there. They're starting to thin out as time goes on. But, guys, I love Dolph Ziggler's work. So, right now, if there was somebody, because I know that Rollins is in the title picture at least, probably not been pushed to the extent that he deserves, but if there was somebody there right now that I could say that I would like to work with, he reminds me of a modern-day Rick Rude. He has that aura about him. He carries himself like a star.
Right, exactly. Because I look at the current WWE picture, and I follow it, and the guy that I would see you with would have been Braun Strowman.
And, I've heard so much about him, believe it or not, because I was talked into watching WrestleMania because I needed to report about it on my highly rated podcast, The Jim Cornette Experience.
Yes.
And that's when they do the deal where, he goes out and he gets the little kid out of the audience. And hey, I'm all in favor of the idea of children and the concept of children and pleasing children and making children happy. But did little Freddie get to come down and play in Game 5 of the NBA Finals?
Yeah.
Come on down to the court, Freddie. It just no. So the one time I've seen the big monster Braun Strowman was when he had a 12-year-old kid as his tag team partner. It kind of soured it for me.
Definitely not the best impression.
Yeah, I'd heard about this man-eating monster that picked his teeth with normal humans, right? And here he comes with
12-year-old kid.
Nick or whatever the kid's name was.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to go back to something. You just made me think of something.
The seventh
here, Jim.
last question.
Right, the seventh last question. Did you ever get to read my book?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember when your book was released. Actually, it escaped.
It did.
No,
no. The reason I'm
no,
asking
I
you.
remember I told you after the fact you were kind enough to get me a copy of your book, Is Wrestling Fixed? I didn't even know it was broken. And I said afterwards, Bill, it's the only wrestling book I've ever read where somebody didn't get really knocked real bad. You were very positive about everybody.
Wait, that's my imitation. Jim Cornette said, Bill Apter's got the only book that doesn't bury anyone. What the hell's the matter with him?
Some could argue you
But
just buried him with that imitation.
But that story of Andre the Giant and Jerry Lawler and Vince McMahon Sr. is in the book. Yeah.
It's in the book,
Yeah.
and still to this day, I'm answering questions about that night. And by the way, just so I'm going to expose the business here, the official, real result of that match, Jerry Lawler disqualified when Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey ran in and attacked Andre the Giant, and Rocky Soulman Johnson made the save for Andre to set up a Southern Heavyweight Championship match the following Tuesday night in Louisville between Johnson and Lawler.
Revealed.
Wow.
Revealed.
Finally revealed after all this time.
After all these years.
Well, again, if we can just run through real quickly where people can find you. Just mentioned the Jim Cornette Experience podcast.
Hey,
And
wait
your
a
book.
minute. Why do you want people to be able to find me? What have I done to you?
Wait
Are
a
you
minute,
trying
know,
to encourage some violence here? No,
Not at all.
It all starts, guys, with JimCornette.com. Because look no further if you want to go there, because you can see my appearances. There's a link to the podcast. There's Cornette's Collectibles, the huge $10 classic wrestling DVD sale, among many other things, including action figures and restraining orders. I'm going to be in Philly at the Keystone Comic Con in September, and we will be doing some other isolated events for the rest of the year, but my schedule's at jimcornette.com. And listen to the Jim Cornette Experience on Thursdays and the drive-through where I answer viewer mail every Monday at wherever you steal your internet and your podcast from.
Awesome. And are you still on Twitter?
I am, as last I checked, but this is it's an evolving, fluid situation. Sometimes I go too far and say some things about people, and Twitter tells me I can't do it again for a week or so. But at the Jim Cornette is the place to go if you dare to find me on Twitter.
Jimmy, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
This was great,
Hey.
and hopefully I'll see you in Philadelphia.
Thank you, guys, and yes, if you can change that international commitment where you're going over. I understand. Did he tell you what he's doing? Did Bill tell you what he's doing that weekend that I'm in Philly?
No, he's keeping.
He's going all the way to Holland
Yep.
to do charity work. He's
Yep.
going to start a halfway house for women that won't go all the way.
That's right. That's right.
I think on that note, thank you very much. This has been really great. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Hey, don't get canceled, Bill. I want to come back and do this again.
Jim Cornette. And by the way, there has been a very friendly yet volatile at times relationship with Jim Cornette and another guy who I want to get on this podcast,
Who's that?
Kenny Boland.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're like best friends who hate each other.
Exactly. But they've had their ups and downs.
The Star Maker.
But Kenny, the Star Maker, has got so many great stories, and I know that he'd love to come on the podcast. So
Yeah, we'll have to make that happen.
we'll have to go to the bowling alley.
Hey, you know what? This is a great time to talk about our guests next week. So you're thinking to yourself, your guest next week? I thought it's part 2 of Sting. And the answer is, yes, it is part 2 of Sting. But we decided, you know what? The second part of that Sting interview isn't quite as long as the first part. And we thought, while it's incredibly interesting,
It's
for
hot.
instance,
It's really hot.
he talks about Seth Rollins, his feelings on Seth Rollins in the match that ended his career. He talks about with The Undertaker, that dream match that never happened.
Triple H.
Triple H, some really interesting stuff.
Well, wait a
comes
minute.
from
As
that.
you know,
Yes.
Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker was trying to suck Shawn Michaels into coming out of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Sting?
I don't know. I guess you'll have to listen to what Sting has to say
Yeah,
about that
because-
next
yeah, he
week
does
in
reveal
part
that.
2. But, Bill, would you like to tell us who else is going to be in the episode straight off of his main event match at All In?
A man named Rey Mysterio Jr.
Yes, Rey Mysterio Jr., Rey Mysterio, or whatever you want to call him. Rey Mysterio will be our guest on the Apter Chat next week, along with part 2 of the Sting interview. So that is a jam-packed
Now,
episode.
if you have questions, we are going to be taping with Ray on September 11th.
Yes,
So
Tuesday,
if-
September 11th.
Right. So if you'd like to ask Rey Mysterio a question, where would they send that to?
They would send that to our Twitter at the Apter Chat or our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Apter Chat, and you can send us questions. We'll put something up there asking for your questions. And the
Yeah,
best
but we
thing
want
do
you
would
to be involved.
Comment on that. Yes, we want to hear all your questions. We want to be able to ask him some of your fan questions, and really looking forward to this. We had the opportunity to see him this past weekend at All In.
And he's I love Lucha Libre.
Yes.
All the way back from the days of Mil Máscaras.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about what he's doing. We're going to talk about what's in his possible future.
Yes.
The rumors possibly about going to WWE.
Who
no
knows?
matter
Maybe
what.
by the time this interview happens, he may be calling us from SmackDown. Who knows?
Well, either that or he might be announcing that he's going to be wrestling Cody for the NWA title at All In 2 somewhere.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But one thing we do know is that Rey Mysterio will be our guest next week on the Apter Chat, along with part 2 of the Sting interview. Hey, Bill,
What?
you were at All In.
I was there, yes.
You were there at that after party.
Oh, yes, the after party that was sponsored by Blue Chew. And the whole Blue Chew crew, it's true, were there.
That almost rhymed completely. But it was pretty good. That wasn't half bad. But you know what? Everybody there, I mean, after such a long weekend and such a long night at All In, you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to stay up for this? Well, they knew exactly how to stay up. BlueChew.com. Oh, if only you could see Bill cringe every time I make these innuendos.
I'm not cringing, I'm blushing.
He's blushing.
Really?
Oh my.
And I don't blush
goodness.
often.
BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Blue Chew was the star of the show at All In, at StarCast, I should say. Everyone was talking about Blue Chew, and those who weren't talking about it were taking it.
They were probably up in their rooms using it.
Exactly. So yeah, there were certain times, people were going up to, hey, you got some chew on you, got a little blue, and are you blue? Grab some chew, and you'll be good to go. So BlueChew.com is something you can take anytime, day or night. You could have taken it first thing in the morning. You could have taken it during that party. And let's say you're at that party and you met another wrestling fan and you say, hey, were you at All In? And she says, I was. And you go, hey, I'd like to be all... No? So anyway, you can go to BlueChew.com and use the promo code BILL, B-I-L-L, to get your first shipment free. Just pay $5 shipping, and you can get your first shipment of Blue Chew free. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. Since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever the opportunity arises. Another wonderful thing about having Blue Chew is that it's prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. So there's no in-person doctor's visit, there's no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, there's no more awkwardness.
What'd you get in the mail today, son?
Remember our special offer. BlueChew.com, use the promo code BILL, B-I-L-L, to get your first shipment free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the Apter Chat. All right, so last week we kind of forgot.
Was it last week?
Yeah, it was last week. Doesn't it feel like it was like ages ago? We were a little busy, a little excited for the weekend ahead of us, and we forgot to thank you, the Apter Chatters, who retweeted a tweet by us to help us to break 1,000 followers on Twitter, and we blew that out of the water. We're well over 1,000 now, but we promised you that Bill Apter himself would thank you on the Apter Chat. So
by
Bill,
reading their handles.
Take it away.
Thank you. So here we go. White Polar Bear Mount, View from the Top Rope, Nicholas Bussman, JML LaRusso, What the Bosh, What I Was Thinking, Rob Gorman, Jason JC, Chris DeGuire, David, Seth Rainwater, I like that name, Ryan is All In, Handsome Dan Lopez, hey, he's been with us for a long time, Heels and Quads Wrestling, Aaron Gulbranson, Mike Gielan, G-Man, G-Man, my man from the United Kingdom, Barry Frost, Aaron Burho, The Threat, Sir Stinks-a-Lot. I like that one. I like that. Wonder if, James B. Fudge, TR, Rock and Wrestling Podcast, Instagram at AWWE Historian, Samuel J. Wilk, Robert Simon, Jeff Cross, Okay Fabe, we know who you are, Get the Tables Podcast, LC, Jordan Stewart Snow, Mike, Bill Apter. He retweeted this?
Oh, thank you so much, Bill Apter.
Yeah, really, thank you, Bill. Irish American, and want to thank all of you for retweeting and being official Apter Chatter retweeters.
Yeah, thank you all very, very much.
So, Josh.
Yeah.
Since we didn't put out a call for Ask Apters.
No, we have a StarCast hangover. So
yeah, we do, but you didn't put out a call for Ask Apter questions, so I'm going to put you on the spot. You said you softball me. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to hardball you right now. Questions you always wanted to ask me. 2 or 3 questions.
Ooh. That is
dealing with pro wrestling.
Okay.
Could be from my book. It could be from what you've known about me. Could be my early career, my mid-career. my side career.
Let's start talking
Tic
a little bit.
Tacs.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Let's start maybe a little bit.
He's thumbing through my book.
Yeah, we're looking.
But
What
without
do we
my book,
have?
is there something you've always wanted to know about my career?
Well, there is one thing I always wanted to know, but we can't talk about it just yet. But I'm
What's
glad
that?
that you brought this up. I would love to know why you were banned from ringside from the WWE.
Easy story.
But I
What happened?
can't tell you yet because we have not reached the 55-star reviews that we want to have. We are 30 away.
55-star, not 55. Right.
5-star reviews.
Right.
We have 20, and we thank all of you for that. But listen, we see the numbers of how many of you, and it is significantly larger than 20 that are listening to this podcast, which, by the way, thank you so much for that. That's awesome, and we
Thank
really
you, Apter Chatters.
we really appreciate all of you. But we would really appreciate if at least 30 of you could go, throw us a 5-star review.
Yeah, that'd be great.
iTunes really likes it, and we really like it when iTunes likes it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Trying to think some of the questions that I might have for you. You know, I'm looking on the front cover of Is Wrestling Fixed?
I didn't know it was broken. Available at all bookstores and Amazon.com.
And
Walmart.com.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
are.
I'm there. I made it.
So you have some great photographs on this front cover. You and Ric Flair, you and Andy Kaufman, you and Triple H, and you and the main man, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start, and this is something I don't think you and I have ever talked about that. Tell me about the first time you met Vince McMahon.
Senior or junior?
Which he does not like to be referred to as junior.
I know, but
because
it's-
he's technically not a junior. It's Vincent J. McMahon and Vincent K. McMahon.
He's Vince Jr.
But first time that you met Vince, can you tell me a little bit about that? When it was?
Vince Sr. was the first McMahon that I had met. His son started working in the office, and I saw him a lot of times at the Holland Hotel in New York on 42nd Street.
Okay.
Off of 8th Avenue, because that's where they had the office that they would go to the day of the Madison Square Garden shows. Vince Sr., Arnold Skolin, Lou Albano, and Vince Jr., and several other people were in there, and I'd go up and get my press ticket from them. And it never said press on it. It was like press messenger or something. It's just to get me in the building. And I remember usually when I knock at the door, Arnold Skolin would open the door, and he'd have a stogie in his mouth, and he'd say, "Oh, I'll be right back. I'll get you your tickets." The first time I met Vince, he was barely in the business there, and he opened the door instead. I said, "Is Arnie here?" And he says, "No, I'm sorry, Arnie's not here right now. He's busy." What I didn't know when those guys were busy, and Monsoon was in there too, Gorilla Monsoon. They were all playing cards.
Sure.
They
Yeah, that
didn't
makes
want to
sense.
come to the door. They were playing cards. So he said, "Well, what can I help you with?" And I said, "I'm Bill Apter from Inside Wrestling Magazine, and I need to get my ticket." "Well, hold on." And waited 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I knocked on the door again. Vince Jr. opened the door again. He said, "I asked you to hold on." So, okay. This is not in my book, by the way, because nobody ever asked me this thing. So he came back, held the door open, and Arnie came out blowing smoke in my face, as always. I loved Arnold Skolin, and he gave me my ticket. And that was the first time I met Vince Jr. Then backstage, I didn't see him at any of the spot shows, like at Sunnyside Garden and places like that. But backstage at the Garden, he was running around a lot like Shane McMahon I would see in later years, kind of like, not like a messenger, but people were telling me that Vince Jr. was going to get a job at Top Rank, the boxing company, which he did. I'm going to give you something that you probably never knew. You remember the Evel Knievel, the Snake River Mountain
Yes.
thing
And
that
I actually did
so
know
that was
this, yes.
that was Snake Canyon. That was a pay-per-view.
Yes.
Actually, it was a closed circuit. You couldn't get it on TV. You had to go to a theater and see it on closed circuit. Vince Jr. was the promoter of that event, along with Bob Arum, the president of. So yeah, little by little, I didn't see a lot of Vince backstage because he was doing his own thing. But little by little, I would see him. Well, maybe he's going to announce a match. Maybe he was going to do that. So, yeah, but the Holland Hotel was the first time I ever met him when I went to get my ticket for a garden show.
So another question that I want to have for you, I'm just, instead of going into your book, I think I'm just going to go straight off the front cover here.
Sure.
I'm not going to ask the first time you met him. You can share it if you'd like to. But Triple H, you have a good relationship.
I have a
with
great
Triple H.
relationship with him.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Triple H. How did it form? How often do you talk to him?
Well, it was formed originally when I saw him in WCW. Well, no, actually it was before that. Killer Kowalski.
Okay.
Killer Kowalski called me and said, I have somebody, a really good wrestler that I'd like you to meet. And it was at some little town in Boston, and I met Paul Levesque.
Terrorizing.
Well, he was Paul. He was no. I met him before he was even Terrorizing.
Well, that was the name that Killer Kowalski gave him.
Correct.
Okay.
But
wow.
at this point,
So
he was
really,
still Paul Levesque.
He didn't even have the name yet.
Didn't even have the name yet.
Okay.
I had seen pictures of this guy that my photographer in that area had sent me. Guy was all pumped up, had blonde hair. It was black and white photos. It could have been white hair at that time. And Killer had told me that he was going to call him Terrorizing. But he kept calling him Paul when I was around there. And we talked, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And then he had the lady who became China, Joni Laurer. Laurer was also there. So that's when I first met them. Then when he came to WCW, he recognized me right away. And keep in mind, this whole time he was a big fan of the magazines. He was a wrestling historian even when I first met him. He loved pro wrestling. We talked when I saw him again in WCW. We talked about wrestling history. But his big thing was, how do I get in the magazines? I never knew I could do a Triple H impression until just now.
Pretty good, actually. Not
bad. That's the current truth. So I asked him to pose for me. We did that, and then he became that character in WCW, Jean-Paul Levesque. And I saw him on the road all the time. He was always very cordial. When he went to WWF back then, along with China, same thing. He pursued me to get in the magazines, and we'd always talk about wrestling. And then when I was banned during that period of time, which I can't talk about right now, is he kept in touch with me anyway, and so did China. So through the years, things developed. We kept that friendship. And after the band was still going. Not the band. The band was still going. But I remember getting a call from him one day from the WWE office saying that, this leads into that part of being banned and then being unbanned. Okay, so I can't answer the full thing.
Okay, you can give us a teaser.
But my current relationship,
5-star
my current relationship with him is absolutely fantastic. He is an old school guy in a new school world, and he really knows how to balance them both.
So a lot of the times people will look at where he is in his career at this point and will say, well, he married Stephanie. People who know him, yeah, that's true. But people who know him, I have heard from people who know him that they feel that he would have been somewhere in this company outside of the ring, even had he never.
The answer is yes.
Stephanie.
The answer is yes.
That's what I wanted to know. Where do you think he'd be?
Being married to Stephanie, of course, was a plus because I think he got closer to Vince's ear to say what.
But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Vince was kind of grooming him before they were even.
Well, yeah, but he didn't want Vince didn't want his daughter to marry one of the boys.
Right. But he had Triple H in
exactly
booking meetings and things
yeah,
like
but keep in mind, Triple H was a rebel. He didn't always like the curtain call when that happened.
He was connected there with Shawn Michaels, so he kind of that whole clique thing. You know, they were there.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you about a rebel story that that no one here knows about.
Please
I was shooting a mid-southern wrestling show in Memphis. Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett promotion. Triple H was on that show. And he knew about the ban, about taking pictures for me, with me. Toward the end of the show, he got up on this huge stage and he pointed to me and he called me over with his little finger. He said, come over. He brought me up on stage and put me over, holding my arm, pointing to me.
I remember when you showed me the picture.
Then we went in the back and he said, are you taking pictures tonight? I said, I have the studio here. Let's pose. I said, but I thought you're not, let's do it. So he broke the rules. He's always been a rebel. Vince McMahon, contrary to what you hear, a lot of times likes rebellious people. He really does, because
I guess he has a respect for them.
he does, because Vince McMahon was a rebel. I love this, by the way. We'll get Ask Apter questions, but I think every week you should do this.
Oh man,
I really do. I'm enjoying this so much. I hope our listeners are. So the current relationship came to fruition when, and this is in my book, he called me to do a pilot show for what became the JBL Legends show, along with Dusty Rhodes.
You have a picture on your Facebook.
Yeah, well, there's a picture in the book with Dusty Rhodes, Terry Taylor, and Larry Zbyszko.
Maybe we'll see if we can put that on our Instagram, that picture.
That'd be great. We could do that. It's in the book.
Yep. Is wrestling fixed?
I didn't know it was broken.
Yeah.
But yeah, great question, Josh.
Thank you. How about one more question?
Okay.
And I'm trying to decide whether or not I
One
want to
more
go
time.
from...
One more time. One more time. One more match.
Do I want to go from here? You know what? I'm going to flip through your book and something's going to jump out at me and I'm going to ask you about
Hopefully it's not a cockroach.
Oh, boy. A cockroach?
He is a cockroach.
Does he use Blue Chew?
Oh.
Oh, here's that picture.
Yeah. What page is that?
Page 185.
Page 185. Yes.
All right. I keep coming to
you
pictures.
People can't see what we're doing here.
Maybe we can put this picture on our Instagram as well? No? You don't think so?
No, get the book to see it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. By the way, you just said something about 9 times today that I'm going to stop you.
What did I do?
You know what people do? And I want people to count how many times a day when you're in a conversation that someone says, there you go. Hey, that was a good meal. There you go. Hey, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm going on vacation today. There you go. Count your there you goes. Let me know how many you count in one day.
So I think that happens to you, Bill, because people just don't know how to respond to you.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. I keep coming up with pictures of Ric Flair.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your relationship with Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Tell me about...
well, I'm going to tell you something.
Tell me a story.
Story about him is he hates posing for pictures.
You've told that story on
Okay,
here
so
before.
what other story do you want to hear?
There's a picture in your book of the two of you at the pool.
Yeah, that was taken in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
We were there for Carlos Colon's show, and I wanted a picture with Rick at the pool. Took my shirt off, went down on one knee, and we posed as a tag team.
Ah.
Yeah, we posed as a tag team. Always had a great relationship with him through his days as a rookie to the world champion Ric Flair and through today.
Who do you think was the greatest world champion of all time?
You're putting me in a spot because it differs.
That was my intention.
Yeah, but it differs from generation to generation.
That's fair.
I could say Luthez. I could say Jack Briscoe. I could say Dory Funk Jr. I could say and imitate Harley Race. I could say Ric Flair. I could say Bruno Sammartino.
How about this? Greatest world champion in the 1980s.
Well, it would be Ric Flair.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was the man at that point.
Greatest world champion in the 1990s?
Whew. My memory is like, well, the 70s would be Bruno.
Okay.
Okay. 1990s, give me some names.
Some
here.
of the people in the 1990s.
Yeah.
It could be anyone from Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter, the Macho Man, Ric Flair again. I'm just talking WWE.
Yeah, but I was more,
of course, Big Van Vader.
Yeah, but I'm talking
Ron
more
Simmons.
No, it would be probably someone in the
Stone
National
Cold.
Wrestling Alliance at that point.
But even I'm talking about the entire '90s. So you would still say someone in the National Wrestling Alliance versus say Stone Cold or The Rock or. I'm putting you in the spot.
No, I
This is
don't
what
mind.
kinda
No, this
yeah.
is good. But you see, they were all, really good champions. But were they the classic champions of someone like a Jack Briscoe or a Harley
No, but it was
Racer
the
or a Bruno?
90s.
Yes, so it was a different era. So I'd put, Hogan, because Hogan was the great draw of back then. So you have to correlate the draw with the title back then because that's what was most important. The character, Hulk Hogan, the world champion Hulk Hogan, inspired more people back at that time. It changed pro wrestling forever.
All right.
I'm going to get a lot of people mad at me for saying that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Not as many people who were mad about episode 1. So. All right. Well, thank you, Bill.
They
I
weren't
appreciate
mad
it.
at
That was-
episode 1.
They weren't mad at episode 1.
They spoke out.
They had
Now, wait a
opinions
minute.
on controversy.
You have your computer in front of you.
Always.
Yeah, so let's go to the National Wrestling Alliance champions of that year.
National Wrestling Alliance champions of
Of
what
the
year?
90s you were talking about?
Okay.
Let's do this. I mean, remember, I've been doing this almost 51 years now. So when someone says, hey, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, sometimes it's hard for me to remember who was in those particular groups
All right.
at that period of time. So give me some
Let's
NWA
go. We've
champions
got
from back then.
in the NWA in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, we kicked off the 90s. Ric Flair was the champion.
So I mentioned that. Go ahead.
And if I'm reading this correctly,
You know who was a great champion who doesn't get the credit for being a great champion because it wasn't a long reign? Ricky Steamboat.
okay.
Absolutely fabulous champion.
I want to say that was in the 80s, though.
Yeah, but I'm
Yes.
just talking about
That was in 1989,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe.
on the cusp.
Yes, 1980. That was February 20th, 1989. Good for me. So, yes, Ric Flair dropped it to Sting, and Sting ushered in the 90s as the champion before losing it back in 91 to Ric Flair.
So Ric Flair the 90s had to be Ric Flair.
Tatsumi Fujinami,
Great Dragon Fujinami was incredible.
again Ric Flair.
So-
Masahiro Chono,
Chono was fabulous too, but Ric Flair was the man. He
Yes.
was the champion.
the Great Muta. Barry Windham, again Ric Flair. Now that brings us to 1993. This was interesting. Shane Douglas, which a lot
Well,
of
that was
people
that was the whole situation where he
and
dissed that
threw
title,
the belt down, and then it was
Yes.
vacated.
and Medusa would do that later on.
And at
as you
that
know.
and at that time, that's kind of when we entered into a different
Different era, it was a
time.
different feel of the business.
Chris Candido, Dan Severn.
Yeah.
And then we started getting
Dan Severn,
into,
by the way, one of my best opponents for the Cow Championship Office
Yeah.
Wrestling title. But let's wrap this.
So I think we're
where-
going to say Ric Flair.
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
90s.
We're going to
if we're
say it. I
talking
will say
NWA.
that. Yeah.
I'm going to say it too.
Definitely.
Looking at
Definitely.
this list.
But
All
when I
right.
hear National Wrestling Alliance and World Heavyweight Champions, in my early days, Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk Jr. had the best matches I had seen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, today's fans would sit there and go, boring, because there was no entrance music.
Yeah, but you know
It
what?
was wrestling.
But I think that we have an opportunity now to see Cody Rhodes bring the NWA Championship back to prominence.
Very well done and a great way to wrap up this Apter chat.
Yes, and again, we encourage you to go back if you haven't listened to our bonus All In and Starcast recap episode. Check that out in our archives. Please give us those 5-star reviews if you think that we've earned it. And you're going to get an answer to Bill's question of why he was banned if we can get to 50 of those.
And don't forget, next week, part 2 of Sting, where he talks about Seth Rollins,
Yes.
The Undertaker.
And Rey Mysterio is going to be a guest.
Absolutely.
That is right from the main event of All In. You're going to have Rey Mysterio. And before we go, Bill,
I want to mention that I need everyone, all the Apter chatters, especially the ones in the United Kingdom, to go to @kayfabe events, because Wonderful Willie will be part of the, excuse me, Vicky Guerrero. That sounded like Jerry Lewis, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did.
It did.
Yeah.
Vicky Guerrero tour for Kayfabe Events. Great things going on with Kayfabe Events. I will be there, and I will have books for sale, and I will be doing my one-man show based upon my book. In my one-man show, there's contests with prizes. There is songery. There are special guests, and wait till you see what I do with Vicky Guerrero.
And hey, speaking of songery, you guys need to go to, and you girls need to go to our YouTube page. We have a video up there of the one and only Bill Apter performing a Barry Manilow song at the karaoke event at StarCast. He stole the show. It was fantastic. It's up there. It has gotten rave reviews.
Well, thank you.
It was really entertaining.
Pat Patterson asked me to come up and do that.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people who didn't know that I've been an entertainer, singer type of entertainer my whole life.
Yeah.
So yeah, please check that out, and please come to see me live at Kayfabe Events to see my one-man show. Again, go to Twitter at Kayfabe Events.
All right, Bill, and where can everybody find you on social media?
Well, of course, at Apter1 Wrestling.
And everybody can find me at So Says Shernoff. Follow us on Twitter at The Apter Chat. Visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Apter Chat.
Yes.
Instagram handle is The Apter Chat. Our YouTube, hey guys, it's not youtube.com/The Apter Chat just yet. We're up to, I want to say, 66 subscribers. We need to hit 100 to be able to get that. We have not really promoted this very much, so the 66 we really appreciate. But there are a lot more people watching our videos than 66. So if you're watching a video, just hit that little button.
Yeah, hit that red subscribe button.
And then the videos will keep popping up. Videos of Bill singing, videos of Scott Steiner saying things that probably should have been bleeped out.
And don't forget, you can also follow me on One Wrestling Video, where archives of my great interviews from the past are right there.
Yes. So thank you again for joining us this week in the Apter Chat. Next week, we got Sting. We got Rey Mysterio.
And any big names?
I think we are out of time, folks. Have a wonderful week. We're going to try and get some sleep after this past weekend. And we'll see you next week. Bill?
No. We'll see you
at the matches.
I love it.